What is going on, everybody? This is TAETRO reporting in from the Lo-Fi Loft. Thank you for joining me today. Today, I wanted to talk about why the Launchkey Mini is so superior to the Akai MPK Mini when it comes to live performance and looping. Obviously, I love the Akai MPK Mini. You've seen me make lots of videos with it, even some live looping performances with it. However, the Launchkey is superior in pretty much every way when it comes to live performance and looping. I'll talk more about the clear differences. You might be wondering why. Well, then why do you use the Akai MPK Mini all the time? First of all, I still like the Akai MPK Mini, and I'm not always doing live looping performances. Sometimes I enjoy the bigger pads and the endless encoders, and it's just an overall good controller. The other reason too is I have a YouTube channel, as you might have noticed, and a lot of people have this controller. So I like to do videos with it so more people can discover the videos and also, figure out how to make beats with it themselves. I just did a live looping performance with the Launchkey and Ableton Live. If you didn't watch that, I highly recommend you watch it before watching this tutorial because it's a pretty dope beat and you'll see what the Launchkey is actually capable of in a live looping situation. All the sounds you're gonna hear today are from a totally free pack. Link is in the description. Thank you to Unison for sponsoring today's video. They're the ones who are hooking y'all up with the free pack. All the sounds I used in this session in the performance are from that pack, and there's way more than what I even used. So check it out, download it for yourself. All right, let's kick things off here by just making it clear. What DAW am I using? Ableton Live. It's probably one of the most superior DAWs for live performance. It literally has live in the name. And I'm specifically using the session view of Ableton Live, which is basically one big looper. You have all these different instrument tracks and there's clip slots on each track, which are essentially little spots that you can put loops. That's what a clip is in Ableton Live, mostly. And I'll demonstrate how this works, maybe if you're not familiar with Ableton Live, and actually how the Launchkey syncs up super well. And the first way it syncs up super well is if we hit play. Any clips that are already ready to play are gonna start playing, like this little percussive loop, which is how I start all of my live looping performances. Gives me a sense of time. I can hear the downbeat, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And that's essential for looping, because when it comes time, I'm gonna hit this record button, and we are gonna start a new loop. Ready? Go. 3, 4. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's loop that back around again. Now, if you rewind and play that back, you will notice that I hit record before I actually wanted to start recording, and then I hit it again before I actually wanted the recording to end. That's because Ableton Live has record launch quantization, big fancy term for every time I hit the record button, it's not just gonna instantly start recording, it's gonna wait until the next downbeat because the setting right now is set to 1 bar. So every downbeat, every start of 1 new bar, it will start a new loop. And that's super, super handy, especially when I wanna be hands-free and jump from hitting the record button to playing some drums or playing some notes on the keys. It's not instant. So doing that created a new clip on the drum rack track. That's just there playing now. Let me tell you why this is pretty difficult on the Akai MPK Mini. So on the Akai MPK Mini, there are no transport controls, no play, no record, no stop. There are, however, pads, and there's also a function called CC, which means you take these pads and instead of them playing drums, like I have here on the drum rack, they become essentially just buttons that you can map to different functions. Now, we could map one of these pads to Ableton Live's session record button, which is essentially what this record button is here on the Launchkey. When you do that, however, you can't immediately start playing drums after hitting record. You'd have to very quickly switch off of CC mode back into drum rack mode, essentially, to be able to start playing. You can imagine that that's gonna cause problems because you're gonna have to hit that record button again to tell Ableton Live, okay, that's the end of the loop, start looping. So that's pretty cumbersome. The way I've worked around that in the past is by using the sustain port here and plugging in just your basic sustain pedal, which sends a MIDI message, MIDI mapping that to the session record button. So that's one workaround and it's worked for me. The reason it didn't work for this session, I'll talk about that right now. So one of the other main functions of doing a looping performance in Ableton Live is switching between your different instruments. So after I lay down the drums or lay down this sample pattern, let's say I want to go to another instrument. I want to go to the 808. I don't want to have to touch my computer to do that. The Launchkey has this built-in function where you can select different tracks in Ableton Live. So watch, I'll hold Shift and press these two buttons here, which are track select. I just have that label covered by a sticker. You'll notice as I do that, the track arm buttons at the bottom of each track, which essentially makes it so you can now control that track with the MIDI controller. Like now I'm controlling the drums. Now I'm controlling the 808. It's arming them. It's not just selecting the tracks, it's automatically arming them. And that is a function not exclusive to the Launchkey Mini, but a lot of controllers that are tailored specifically for Ableton Live will have this function. And that is crucial to be able to jump from drums, do that loop, then jump over to the 808, start recording that loop as well. Do that throughout the whole session. Go from the 808 now to the synth, another synth, and it's all at the push of a button. No way to do that on the Akai MPK Mini, unfortunately. I'm not even sure if this function is mappable. In my previous live looping sessions with the MPK, however, the way I got around this was I had a special edit to the options.txt file in Ableton Live's preferences, essentially, that allowed me to use the computer keyboard's arrows to function the exact same way as the Launchkey Mini track select does. I didn't feel like doing that, especially when I have the Launchkey Mini sitting right here that has the built-in functionality. One more note on that, because you might run into this problem like I did, and I think this is fairly new. In Live's preferences, you want to make sure that record arm is not set to exclusive. You want to turn off exclusivity for arming, which sounds like it doesn't make any sense, and to me it doesn't really make any sense. However, you do want to turn that off. I found that it was messing with the record arm function in Live 11. This is new for Live 11, I think, because I never had to do that before, and it doesn't even make sense because we're only ever arming one track at a time anyway. And the last thing is, while we're talking about preferences, go into the options menu of Ableton Live and turn off chase MIDI notes, because that will give you some like double hits and double notes if you're doing things like finger drumming and you have record quantization on. So if you're experiencing that, turn off chase MIDI notes. Okay, so we can control the DAW, we can hit play. Not only that, we can record on top of things. Notice how the drums recorded, but I didn't have to hit record again. That's because that clip already existed. We already recorded a clip on this track that contained those two samples. Now triggering record again allows us to overdub on top of that clip. We're not making a new clip in that situation. We're just overdubbing on the old one, which is really great for layering and for doing a live looping performance like this. So it's just that easy. You can move on from one instrument to the next to quickly record in another layer. And then there's some other things that I did with this performance that are possible with the Akai MPK Mini. It's just a bit more cumbersome for a couple reasons. One advantage the Launchkey Mini has is that it has 16 pads as opposed to these 8 pads. Which if I want to play a typical drum rack, I've got kick, snare, maybe a perk, that's 3, a couple different hi-hats, now we're at 5, add 2 or 3 samples in there and we're at 8. All the pads are taken. With 16 pads, I have so much room, not only for samples and drums, but to do some mapping. And I did do some custom mapping of these pads. I'll show you a couple of them. These 3 pads are actually a beat repeat at different intervals. Here's what that sounds like. It's like a stutter. Nice LED feedback showing me that those are on. These other 2 lights that are on essentially are telling me that the kick and the hi-hat are turned on. So if I do this, you hear the kick is playing. This button turns off my kick. This button turns off my hi-hats. So I go. Now I've got a hi-hat loop. That's going. From this page, I can turn that off. Well, I can do that from this page as well. So anywhere I go, I have access to these track on and offs. Turn off the kick quickly, trigger these beat repeats. And the last one here is like a tape stop effect. So those 6 pads are custom mapped, and that is super useful because I have the entirety of my drum kit here. I don't have to sacrifice pads. I also don't have to switch off into another mode, which, like I talked about before, there is CC mode on this. There's also a second bank of 4 pads that you can dial into, but one less button press, one less paging through and finding things, you know, it's just less convenient than the setup we've got here on the Launchkey. Video on how to set up that beat repeat, beat stutter effects at the top. And that tape stop effect is called pitch drop. It's a Max for Live device. Other stuff I was doing with the Launchkey Mini definitely can be done on the Akai MPK Mini as well. For instance, my custom mapping of the knobs. Click play here really quick. I have a filter on the drums, a high pass filter on the entire track, a low pass filter on the entire track. This is like a pre-made rack. I also have send A, which is reverb. That's the drums send A. So I can just quickly emphasize one of those snares like that if I want to. And then you hear the drums and that rhythmic track are going. The drum rack and the rhythmic track, both of their volumes are tied to that knob right there, which I used in the performance to take out all of the rhythmic elements and just have the synths, the other synths going. I also use that at the end of my track as well. I use that low pass filter, I should say, a lot during the transitions to different parts of the track. Of course, that can be done on the Akai MPK Mini very, very easily, and that's really what it comes down to. Those main crucial functions being that I have a record button right here, which is super convenient, as well as the ability to page through the tracks and arm them as I go. It's super, super crucial to this performance, and having the extra pads. That, for me, is why the Launchkey Mini is superior. I will also say that there is a sustain port on the Launchkey Mini, so if you wanted to do hands-free looping with the sustain pedal mapping function, you absolutely could still do that. In case, you know, hitting the record button doesn't work. So this is not a video to bash the Akai MPK Mini, of course, but I do get a lot of questions about comparisons between them. One of the reasons I'm more quick to recommend the Akai MPK Mini to a beginner is because usually they haven't decided on what DAW they're going to use, and usually they aren't actually interested that much in live performance. They just want to make beats or make music with their computer. And the Akai is just like a solid tool for that. There's nothing wrong with it. The Launchkey is just like a little more specific. You're pretty much missing out on a lot of the greatness of the Launchkey Mini if you're not using it with Ableton Live. So if you make your own live looping performances, or if you're thinking about getting into live looping, that sort of thing, let me know in the comments down below. If you have a Launchkey Mini, do you wish you got a Launchkey Mini? Do you have experience with other controllers that work really well for the Launchkey? I have a ton of controllers, but I really love taking one and just getting the most out of it and doing a performance with just one piece of gear, because I think it's important to show like what's actually possible with just one piece of gear. So that is going to be it. Free sample pack link is in the description. Everybody should take advantage and download that. And thank you all so much for watching. Leave a like on your way out. Hit the join button if you want to support the channel and become a member. Join our Discord community. Submit to our Lo-Fi Loft playlist. Submit to our track feedback sessions, and even get yourself some more free samples as a member. But that's going to be it for now. Thank you all so much for watching. This has been TAETRO from the Lo-Fi Loft. Have a good one.